spokesperson for Russia-backed separatist forces in the Donetsk region, denies using chemical weapons. And Ukraine's deputy defense minister says preliminary information suggests phosphorus munitions were used. Phosphorus is not classified as a chemical weapon, but it can cause burns and lead to infection, shock, and organ failure. And it is used as a weapon in civilian areas. Its use as a weapon in civilian areas is forbidden by the Geneva Conventions. Let's bring in senior Pentagon reporter Louis Martinez, along with ABC News contributor and retired Marine Colonel Steve Ganyard, for more on that. Louis, what exactly are phosphorus munitions, and how are they different from chemical weapons?
Good morning, Diane. Phosphorus munitions are essentially chemicals inside a round. Think of like a flare, when you fire a flare in the nighttime in order to illuminate the area. Well, think of it on a larger scale. That's what you do with an artillery shell. It's full of white phosphorus. You launch it, and it creates illumination of the battlefield. You can also use it for smoke screens, and you can also use it as an incendiary in order to try to start a fire somewhere. But again, on the battlefield. The issue here, as you laid out in the graphic there, that if you use it in a civilian area, it's dangerous, but that's because as the flare comes down, it contains chemicals that can cause burns on skin, and therefore at that point it becomes a weapon. But again, these are weapons, these are munitions that have dual use in the sense that they can be used on the battlefield. The United States actually possesses these kinds of munitions, but their use against civilian populations is definitely not allowed by the norms of international combat.
Steve, how could this change the U.S. and NATO's posture against Russia if this is confirmed to either be phosphorus or be a chemical weapon?
Yeah, very important to make the distinction to emphasize the distinction that Louis was making there. White phosphorus does have military applications. Most militaries around the world actually use it for various purposes, as long as it's not against civilians or not directly used against troops. It's legitimate. So if it is white phosphorus, I think that it'll be fine and it won't shift U.S. policy at all. But I do think this points out, Diane, that people are on edge. I mean, there's probably been some intelligence over the past couple of weeks that the Russians at least have been prepared to use chemical weapons. But in this sense, everybody's on edge waiting for the Russians to actually do it, to be able to call them out and to prevent any civilian casualties from the use of those chemical weapons.
And Louis, the U.S. is sending 8 to 10 flights of military aid per day to the region. And the Pentagon says it's considering training more Ukrainians on new weapons in the U.S. How significant is that?
Well, it's very significant, Diane, but the point, we have to caveat it because it's just the United States keeping the door open. We know that there are about maybe less than a dozen Ukrainians who happen to be in the United States since the end of last year for a regular foreign military exchange program. They were here, and towards the end of that program, they were trained for a couple of days on the use of this new drone, the Switchblade. This is the one that we keep hearing about, the kamikaze one-way drone. You can launch it from a tube, and then it heads towards its target, and potentially it could destroy it because it rams into it. That's so far the only training that we have heard about battlefield use of weapons for Ukrainian forces here in the United States. Are they leaving open the door that potentially in the future additional Ukrainian forces could be coming to the United States or somewhere else, for that matter, to be trained on these munitions that keep going over there? It's possible, but what the United States and its allies have been doing is that they have been sending over munitions that the Ukrainians are already trained how to use. For the most part, Soviet-made weapons, Russian weapons, as well as United States and allied weapons like the Javelin anti-tank weapon or the Stinger anti-air missile that they are already trained to use. So I think they're trying to avoid this, but it's possible.
All right, Louis Martinez, Colonel Steve Ganyard, we appreciate it as always. Thank you.
Hi, everyone. George Stephanopoulos here. Thanks for checking out the ABC News YouTube channel. If you'd like to get more videos, show highlights, and watch live event coverage, click on the right over here to subscribe to our channel. And don't forget to download the ABC News app for breaking news alerts. Thanks for watching.